on things, but it may not be where you're at. So let me know in the comments where you're joining from, what state, maybe what country, maybe you're not from America. Very nonchalant live stream today. I want to kind of go over all these battleground polls that we're seeing. I have the interactive map in front of us as well. I want to show you guys some CPAC interviews as well that I didn't release yet. Fabian at some point is going to be joining us as well for this live stream. But before we do anything, smash that like button, please. Like I just told you that a biological male should be able to compete in women's sports. Literally, smash that like button, please. Share this stuff because believe it or not, I'm already demonetized on YouTube since yesterday. But we're trying to appeal that process, see if that goes well, if anything. But who knows? Who cares? Anyways, today's show is sponsored by one of the best things, Freedom Water. Freedom 2.0 water. I love their slogans because on every single water bottle, they have some funny slogan. Like, for example, water for deplorables. One of my favorite things there. So I want to quickly just show you guys where you guys can go and get that. Seriously, this water is so funny. It's great to have. Give this to your liberal uncle or aunt or whatever it is. But you can get it at freedom2.0.com. Go on there, use our code BreakawayUSA. It'll save you some money. And yeah, share this stuff maybe as a gift for your friends, maybe as a joke on that liberal aunt or you have or something like that. Or just have it for yourself like I have it for myself. So before our show, let me take a nice big gulp. If Gentry was here, he would say exactly what this water does. Okay, guys. So let's see. Stop sharing. All right, we're back. So like I said, I mean, it's pretty much established now that we're going to have Donald Trump versus Biden in this 2024 election that we're going to have. Unless something crazy happens in between now and then, it's pretty much set forward. I mean, the stage is set here. It's going to be Trump versus Biden. It's going to be RFK Jr. in some states. He hasn't qualified for all states to be on the ballot, but he's in some battleground states, but not all. So we'll see how much of a difference he makes in these battleground states. But mainly, it's going to be the fight between former President Trump and current President Biden. And if you've noticed during the primary season, I know us conservatives, we've been hyper focused on the battleground or the primaries and caucuses going on in the Republican side. But on these election nights, me and my crew, we've been also checking out what's going on the Democrat side. And because of Biden's age, because of Biden's corrupt and terrible policies, and in some cases, me being Jewish, being from Israel, right? I like the fact that he's actually being pro-Israel, but a big chunk of his base does not like that. So what you're seeing in these primaries in the Democrat side of things is 20,000, 25,000, in some cases 100,000 people voting in a single state uncommitted on the Democrat side. And that's plunging Joe Biden in these states from usually an incumbent president is getting 96, 97% of the state on a primary, right? But now he's getting 75%, 78%, 82%. And that's a multiple of reasons: his age, his policies, his support for Israel, which is, again, for me, is a really oxymoron. But yeah, guys, it's very, very interesting. But beyond that, now that we're kind of out of the primary season, again, unless something crazy happens. And when I mean crazy, right, it has to, on the Trump side of things, there has to be some crazy indictment to take this man out. On Biden's side, something literally crazy has to happen for them to go into the DNC in August and for them to completely replace him. But again, all these uncommitted votes means that he's not getting all the delegates that he needs. He already got all that he needs, but that reserves the right for people to vote otherwise and give those delegates to other people when it comes to the DNC convention in August. So again, interesting stuff. But while all of this is happening, we've been seeing some awesome polls come out for us, people on the right side, that show us that people are breaking away from Biden and are starting to flip for Trump. And I'm saying flip from Trump or flip from Biden because they're disenfranchised by the Democrat Party. They're disenfranchised by Biden's policies. And they're starting to make their decisions that in 2024, we're going to vote for Trump. And nowadays, it's actually really simple to ask independents, what was better, the 4 years that you had with President Trump or these last 3.5 disaster years that we've been with Joe Biden. And when you put it out like that in front of independents, it's a simple kind of decision to make, essentially. I see somebody's calling me a Fed in the comments. You got me. I'm a Fed and I'm funded by the CIA as well. But let's check out this interactive map. So I have 270 to win. Let's see. Let's pull that up. So as things stand right now, this is the current 270 map, meaning that based on all the polls that we have, this is about where we will get without all the battleground states being decided. So 226 electoral votes for the Democrats and 235 electoral votes for the Republican Party, right? So, and I don't dispute any of this stuff that we're looking at on the screen right now. I mean, as much as I would like to say California is in play, that might depend on President Trump's vice president pick, but I'm pretty sure that that's solid blue for them. It's not even like tilting blue. New Mexico could be an interesting play. I believe personally that any state, perhaps besides California, that borders that has a border with the Mexico border is in play for us, because immigration is the number one thing for all voters, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat. It's the number one issue facing not likely or not registered voters, but likely voters. And there's a big difference, because likely voters are people who've actually voted consistently in most elections, or in all elections, let's say, especially in the last election. And registered voters are people that are just registered to vote, not necessarily that they vote. So likely voters, the number one issue for them is immigration, border policy, anything related to this crisis that we're seeing at the southern border. So anything's in play here, right? Including New Mexico. Arizona is pretty established. We're going to look at some battleground polls before we start to fill this stuff in. Florida, I like that it's not a battleground state anymore. DeSantis won its in a wave, honestly, last time. So it should be pretty easy. And then Trump also won it relatively pretty easy in 2020 with all the crazy, funky stuff going on. He still won it relatively pretty easy. Georgia, we'll look at again a battleground state before we start filling things in. But one thing that I actually want to move to the battleground state is Minnesota at the top there. Again, guys, this has to do with the fact that a lot of people are disenfranchised, especially up in the blue wall there, with Biden's policies, specifically with his policies for Israel. So, and again, I find that hilarious to me, because I'm pro-Israel. I enjoy what Biden does. You can see the backlash start to happen. So he's walking back things. He's starting to flip on his policy. So I won't be saying that I agree with him too much soon, I feel like, because of the impact that he's seeing up on the blue wall states in Minnesota and Michigan specifically. Not so much Wisconsin. Wisconsin is relatively a purple state, I would say. You have a pretty conservative Supreme Court there. It outlawed these ridiculous things that they were constantly trying to do in 2020. But yeah, guys, we have an interesting map here. And then I want to move North Dakota to Democrats. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so we have that established. So let's look at some battleground polls, and then we'll come back to this. Interactive map. I hear my dog going crazy out there, so sorry, guys. But let's see. I'm still learning how to share my screen. Oh, there you go. Okay, so we had to stop the screen, and now we got to move the screen. All right, so I'm trying to pull up our polls for battleground states, and there they are. So, okay, so let's look at our first one. Like I said, Wisconsin, relatively purple state. In 2016, Trump won it by a pretty high margin, about 10,000 votes. And you have to think to yourself, Wisconsin, not that big of a population. 10,000 votes is a lot. It's about 3 or 4 points. And the funny thing about that is that I remember Clinton trying to challenge the results in Wisconsin specifically, because guess of what? Their favorite word, voter fraud, right? And she tried, I think the Green Party candidate, I forgot her last name, but she rallied up a bunch of money, basically like said, hey, I'm campaigning again. I want to get money so we could have a recount in Wisconsin. And everybody was laughing at that fact. They did a recount in Wisconsin. Guess what? President Trump still won. That was hilarious. But look at that stuff right now. Wisconsin, what was this? October and November, New York Times poll showed that Biden was up by 2. Then we had a couple polls in mid to end of January come out and say that they are tied. And now look at the latest polls coming out from The Hill, Bloomberg, Morning Consultant, relatively pretty accurate polls. You know, they get like A plus in their accuracy or A minus in some cases. But he's up 3-4 points. And the main thing that I always look at is not just how much is he up, but look at the percentage of vote that he's getting. He's getting the 45, the 46, while Biden is getting low 40s. It's very important to remember because we also have RFK in here. We have third party candidates as well. So all of this matters when we're looking at the actual electoral map and the polls and whatnot, because once you get past this 45, including third party candidates, I'd say you pretty much have a safe lock on the state. And we're right there. We're at 45, 46%. So Wisconsin looks good. We'll go back to our map here after 3 states. Arizona is looking beautiful. I mean, they have to do some corrupt stuff. And I'm always opening the door. I always leave the door open for the fact that they can do that stuff. But Arizona, surprisingly, is looking very good. And the reason I say surprisingly is because in a sense, that is where the most these never Trump Republicans are. I don't know if they're just butching these polls essentially and taking their word that they will vote for them and not asking them, are you this never Trumper individual? Again, this is the McCain country. You know, the dispute between Trump and McCain. McCain is very much establishment figure. The establishment Republicans that rebel against Trump, against the MAGA movement, they are in Arizona. They're trying really hard to make sure Carrie Lake isn't the Senate candidate there, even though she is going to be now the Senate candidate. But yeah, guys, I mean, Arizona looks like it's on lock. We're reaching 49, 46, 46, 49, 49. We're up on average 5.2 points on Biden there. The average comes out to being 47.8 versus 42.6. These are, again, Fox News. Okay, you don't trust Fox News. Understand. Bloomberg, Morning Consult. Those are pretty good. Emerson. These are pretty good standard polls. And yeah, it's looking pretty good there. Let's look at one more before we go back and fill in based on the averages, right, guys? So I'm looking at the averages, and then we're going to fill in the map to see where we're at. We have Georgia, my home state, which I, to this day, cannot believe it's relatively blue, meaning that we do have a Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican secretary of state. We have a majority Republican House and Senate. So majority state Congress is Republican. That's why we do have conservative policies here. But both our U.S. senators are Democrats, right? Warnock and Ossoff, right? But yeah, guys, this is pretty crazy, honestly, because I look at Georgia and you've noticed the shift in it, because relatively the only reason Georgia does, the only reason you saw Georgia come out blue last time, besides all the funky stuff that are happening, is because of a couple big cities. Atlanta is one of them. Another one is Columbus. We also have Savannah. Macon is also another one. But these cities are like your metropolitan areas, especially Atlanta, right? Your sanctuary cities in a sense. But they, for some reason, broke out for Biden last time, where this time you can see the suburban areas around the cities becoming darker red. And that is why you have Trump leading on average by 5.7%. Look at the latest polls. They are all above 50% from CBS, even News. The Hill, Emerson, showing him at 51, 52, leading Biden by 4 points, 3 points, 6 points in some cases, right, guys? This is great to see. So again, and the shift is because let's be fully honest. The metro Atlanta area is heavily demographically Black. And I believe, growing up in this area, understanding like pop culture and everything like that, when you have a guy getting indicted, especially in Atlanta, and has a mugshot and has a RICO case against him, when a popular rapper in Atlanta is literally fighting a RICO case right now, Young Thug for those who don't know, you're going to have some kind of sediment, some kind of grievances that they can share with each other like that. And you've seen that all over Twitter. You've seen that all over social media, essentially. Like a lot of rappers, they wear the mugshot shirts and whatnot. So there is a big shift. And you can look at the numbers that came out recently. In 2020, Biden won about 89% of the black share votes. In now that they're polling them, he's down to 74%, about a 15% drop, right? So all of this makes sense when we start to see polls like this. All right, let's go back and fill in our map again. Let's see, how's our map looking now after we fill it in. Let me get another sip of this nice Freedom 2.0 water. I keep saying 2.0, it's 2.0. All right, so Arizona looking red. Georgia also looking red. I'm doing dark red for them because it's above 5%. Texas is kind of scaring me, the fact that it's a little light red. And we also looked at Wisconsin. We'll give it a very light one. Right, guys? We're looking for 270. Where are we at? We're at 272. But let's not stop there. Let's see what other polls are looking like. All right. Let's go back to our polls. And again, this is Real Clear Politics, or Real Clear Polling, I guess, which takes the average of everything that we're seeing at Real Clear Politics. So very, very accurate, I would say. I mean, the over-under is about 0.3 either or way. So Pennsylvania might matter for that fact. But let's look at Michigan. Michigan, right? Again, this is the place where we had 100,000 uncommitted Biden voters or Democrat voters. It was the thing is that, again, this is mostly due not to the fact of his age and overall Democrat policies. It's mostly to do with Israel. And again, that is just hysterical for me because Trump is probably more pro-Israel than Biden ever could be. Let's talk about the simple fact that when it came down to moving the Israeli embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, a promise made by, I think, 6 or 7 of the last presidents, Trump was actually the one to do it. The Abraham Accords that was established from the Trump administration is something that I can't ever visually see the Biden administration achieving. Look at the fact that they haven't achieved none of that so far, right? So these uncommitted, I'll call them protest voters, which they actually assembled this entire protest vote within a 3 or 4 week campaign. Essentially, they petitioned Michigan and Minnesota Secretary of State to allow an uncommitted person to be on the ballot, or an option, you could say so. And these people, actually 100,000 of them went and voted. That was, I think it was about 15% in every single precinct voted in this uncommitted kind of fashion, right? And that's a big wake-up call for Biden. But regardless what these people end up doing, look at Michigan that we're looking at right now. On average, Trump is leading it by 3.5% over that 45% block that I talked about, 46.5%. These uncommitted protest voters against Biden, half of them will end up voting for Biden, but the other half will disperse around between RFK Jr., third-party candidates, write-ins, right? They'll probably write in ceasefire like a bunch of idiots. And some of them will actually end up voting for Trump because, in a sense, I think that a lot of Muslims are waking up to the fact that you want peace in the Middle East. It's going to come through strength. It's going to come through economic relationships, which is what the Trump administration started to build with the Arab world. It started to essentially bring in the Arab world into our Western democracies, right? I know you guys may not like that word and whatnot, but it started to have, in a sense, a way that we can all share the same values through trade. What a great way to do it. All right, so Michigan on lock. Pennsylvania is a very interesting place because, in a sense, they don't really, they're not Republican, they're not Democrat. Obviously, in the last election, they were pretty Democrat, but they're swinging back and forth all the damn time. They can't make up their mind. And because majority of Pennsylvanians are independent, right? You have your base of 40% of Republicans and 40% of Democrats. But then that leaves 1 out of 5 people not being a committed voter to any sort of political party. Again, though, look at Pennsylvania. We're up above the 45% there on average, but so is Biden, which will be a close election because Pennsylvanians, and you can see by the fact that both sides are above 45%, are not going to be sitting there and choosing between RFK. They're independents that make their decision. I'm either voting for Democrats or I'm voting for Republicans. I'm not sure how much immigration is a top issue for these individuals, but you can damn be assured that it's going to be economy if it's not immigration. Immigration is probably second to them because, again, you don't have to be a border state or be close to a border state for you to feel everything that we're feeling from disastrous policies that we're seeing from the Biden administration. But yeah, look at these latest polls, 52% to 48%, 49 to 47, 49 to 43. Very, very powerful. And look at what they tried to fool you with, this awful poll of registered voters. At the very bottom there, 39 to 47. And then they go so they swing in about a month and a half from Biden 8 up to Trump 2 up. Some of these pollsters are absolutely ridiculous. All right. And another one, North Carolina, we don't need to look at. Let's go back to our map. So 270 map, please bring us back on. There's our 270 map. All right, so let's fill in what we saw. We had Pennsylvania. We swung that a little bit towards our way. And Michigan, let me see, it was above 5, right? No, it's 3. Okay, so coloring in Pennsylvania red, coloring in Michigan red. Now we're at 306, which is exactly what Trump won in 2016. He won 306 to whatever is added up to the Democrats. All right, let's look at Minnesota and Nevada. So I keep forgetting I need to share each screen. Oh, Fabian is here. So let's take a break for a second. Fabian.
Hey, everyone.
What's going on, Fabian? Live from where?
Colombia.
And look, I'm live from the Masters. So we're all, there you go.
I am in beautiful, sunny Colombia right now. What a country. But it is incredible. But just being out of the country and hearing what other people are saying about what they believe is happening in the country, it's really important to see so we don't get caught up in this echo chamber of whatever it is that we do. It's good to hear other people talking. And I know we're talking about the election map and everything, but one interesting thing that I've been hearing from people is that a lot of people still aren't aware of the fact that there's this massive woke war on everything normal. When I told the people here what they're doing to kids and what they're doing to children, they're literally appalled. They can't believe it. They're like, wait, what is happening over there? And there's a real anger at people because this culture is different. The Latin American culture is different, where they really value things like having children early and having large families, right? All the stuff that Americans are fighting for is what they also like here and what they value here. So, I told them, I said, listen, it's coming here. Don't think you're immune. It's already here. It's just not at the level it is in America. So we're trying to fight off this beast so that you guys don't have to try to fight it off yourself, because without the freedoms that we have in the US, it's going to be much harder for them to fight something like that. I mean, we've seen it over in Switzerland where the guy having an anti-immigration speech had the light shut off and he was arrested for what he was saying. So
it's crazy.
It's interesting hearing different sides of the different opinions about what's happening.
The one thing that kind of like makes me think, though, is the fact you said that they have these conservative values, essentially, like, pro-family, all that stuff that you mentioned earlier. So in a sense, sometimes when we think about these illegal immigrants that are coming to America and we're automatically thinking they're going to vote Democrat, which in a lot of the case scenarios they do, a lot of them do come here because they're looking for these freedoms and whatnot. And I'm not saying that what they're doing is right by breaking the law and not coming through the port of entry and following all the right laws of getting in here. But sometimes I get to think, like, out of these 8 million illegal immigrants that crossed the border and came in here in the last 2-3 years, how many of them are actually like anti-communist, anti-socialist, pro-conservative values and stuff like that. And the fact that you're in Colombia and you're experiencing it gets me to think like, shoot, maybe more than 50% are
Well, you
anti-socialist.
know, but the thing is, they don't know that. So they thought they were explaining to me why they're against Trump and why they're against the Republican Party. They had it completely flipped backwards. I said, no, you have it opposite. This is what the Democrats are doing. This is the what, and they go, oh, it's like that. We didn't know that. So I think it's just a very, very basic understanding. Look, I'm a first generation born here in the, in America. Well, I'm not in America now, but American born, and you just voted Democrat. That's just what you did. Why? That's just what you did, right? It was almost a foregone conclusion. So the more that this message reaches people, I mean, very basic things that, what do conservatives stand for? What do Democrats stand for? I think that just that in itself will open a lot of people's eyes to what's really happening and which party they should be voting for, not just that they are voting for just because they're Democrats.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Well, you came in here at the perfect time because we just finished coloring in our 270 to win map, and we're already above 270. We're at 306, but got a couple
Wow.
more states we're going to look at. So, and this is all based on all the averages of all the polls. This is Real Clear Polling, which takes all of its data from Real Clear Politics, which they have a great system, and they only take in the accredited what is it, polls, yeah, exactly, that scored I think above 86% or so on their accuracy in the last like 20 or so years. So these are pretty relevant and accurate polls. So but yeah, let's look. I was going to look at a few more because we're going to look at how Nevada is going to vote. And then if I can find Minnesota, that would be great. But Nevada, as you can see, I mean, hold up, let's put us up. Oh, perfect. Yeah, Nevada is looking great. I mean, we're looking for the main thing we're looking for in all of these polls is somebody above 45%, because everything else will probably be split between third-party candidates, especially with RFK Jr. in most battleground states being there. But Trump, again, is above 45% on average. He's at 46.3 to Biden's 40.7. So that's about a 5.6% spread right there. And the latest polls have had him above 45 in all cases, 46, 48, 45 to Biden's 40, 42, 40. And Nevada is one of those states that I think you'll agree with me, Fabian. I don't think that it's exactly a border state. It might be. I'm not exactly sure, but it's one of those states that if it's not a border state, it is feeling like a border state because it's being impacted by Biden's and Democrats' absolutely horrible border policies, immigration policies they have. So I think Nevada is going to easily swing to Trump because first of all, last time the governor was elected, it was a Republican. I think it was 2022. And yeah, I mean, the immigration being such a big problem and it being essentially a border state, I think is going to have a big impact on the fact that it's going to go red. What do you think?
So I've been traveling to Nevada a lot. I was there last week for the Replatform convention, and I was there about a month earlier. So I go quite often. And let me tell you something. I've been traveling to Nevada my whole life, specifically Las Vegas. I've been there literally hundreds of times. And I've never seen anything like what I'm seeing now, where it's massive support for Trump. Trump signs everywhere, decals everywhere, flags everywhere. It's like a cultural thing is shifted. And I even told him, one of my best friends, Chris, I said, when I first started seeing, I said, what is going on there? He's like, dude, everyone's for Trump here. So it's becoming this cultural thing where it's like cool to do it, right? Whereas before you wouldn't really talk about, I don't talk about who I vote. No, now it's all in the open. I was there for Trump's rally where he had a rally over at Stoney's Rockin' Country Club. And it was at it's called Town Square, which is a large outdoor mall right by the strip. And the line was literally around the corner, and then it went into the mall because there wasn't enough room to hold all the people. Obviously not everyone got in, but just the aura of people that were traveling from far away and just nearby over in the strip. Like Nevada, I think is going to shock a lot of people because I'm seeing things there, like I said, I've never seen in my 20 years of going to Nevada or so.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments said Nevada loves Trump, but the state is hella corrupt. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about for a lot lately because of all the shenanigans we saw in 2020. I feel like because of the shenanigans that we saw in 2020, it's going to be really hard to pull some crazy stuff like that again this year with the amount of scrutiny, with the amount of awareness that we've have now because of everything that's happened in the past. So I'm with everything you said, Fabian, and the simple fact that it's like, again, it's a border state. They are feeling the impact of these terrible immigration policies. I feel like without a doubt, Nevada is going to swing to Trump. And look at the polls; they say it themselves. We're not making this stuff up. Okay, so I was trying to find Minnesota, but I guess we'll just end up giving Minnesota back to the Democrats. Let me.
Wait, I so what are the polls on there? The Bloomberg one had Trump up by 9 points. That's insane to see something like that in a presidential election.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And again, it makes sense because I mean, with these latest polls of him finally for the first time ever being up on women by a point, and that's a New York Times poll, the fact that he's winning women by a point, it's like 46 to Biden's 45, just shows how disenfranchised people are becoming of all of these, I'd say, anti-American policies that they're pushing on the people because and America last policies, that's the best way to kind of put it. Okay, let's fill in real quickly. So Nevada red, Minnesota will give it back to the Democrats blue. And there you guys have it, the 2024 election based on the polls that we just went over, based on the 270 to win, judging which ones are toss-up states. And you have 312 to 226. The battleground states that would end up going to Trump are Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Nevada isn't a really battleground state. It's just a toss-up state. And there you guys have it. I mean, this is your 2024 election that you're looking at. And I think this is a perfect time, actually, because Fabian is traveling. He's in Colombia. I want to give a shout out to another one of our sponsors because when you're traveling, one of the best things you can do is always be ready, making sure that you have everything because you don't want to all of a sudden get sick abroad and not be able to see the things or not be able to do the things that you want to because you're feeling sick at home and whatnot. Or maybe you're at home and you're not traveling anywhere and you just don't want to go out and go to the doctor and all this stuff. So we partner up with a wellness company. They're awesome. They're great people. They're a parallel economy company that is fighting all this woke stuff out there. You don't have to go to your doctor to get some of the things that are here because they're in-house doctors that will prescribe you these things like ivermectin, CPAC, all these great, awesome stuff. So if you want to get this kits, you just go on there to thewellnesscompany.com, I believe /breakaway. Is that right, Fabian?
/breakaway. Yep.
/breakaway. Use our code breakaway. You'll save nicely on your kits, on anything that you get on there. And yeah, we just appreciate that company for sponsoring us, allowing us to bring you these shows that we're doing here today. Fabian, you want to say anything since you're in Colombia?
Yeah, in fact, I actually brought this exact same kit with me to Colombia. It's upstairs, or else I'd go run and get it. But you know, just having this with you, one of the best things that I like about this kit is not only the fact that you actually have the medicines that you need, not just like bandages and tape and stuff, which is great to have, but you have the medicine and you have this pamphlet that's inserted into it that tells you everything that could happen to you. So if you're feeling like this, you look at the pamphlet, it says you probably have this. Take this much of this and this much of this. So it literally tells you exactly what to do. Well worth it to have everything in one single kit. And I mean, I don't see anyone else doing anything like this, which is really unique. They sponsor a lot of patriots like James O'Keefe and the amazing work that he does. So a company that sponsors someone who's exposing the depths of the corruption of our despicable government in power right now has my backing, and they obviously sponsor us. So got to give a shout out to the wellness company.
Absolutely. And it's cool because, like you said, a lot of people like James O'Keefe, Dennis Prager, they're sponsored by this company. So it's nice to be sponsored by a company that is working with such good conservative voices. James O'Keefe, people that are exposing everything that's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so we got the 270 map out the way. We got that all squared out. Republicans should win bigly. in 2024. And that's, again, if everything maintains how it is today, if nothing happens and if nothing crazy happens. But okay, so let's move on to the second part, which I wanted to kind of go over some CPAC interviews or quick films that I got of people out there, right? These are popular conservatives or big time conservatives or people that have worked in the Trump administration or Congress people or people running for Congress, all of this stuff. And I just want to say CPAC was really interesting. It was the first time I ever went to like a big political event like that. I've been to really small local precinct events, and now it's hilarious on its own. But this was the first big one, headlined by President Trump, speaking on the same day that the South Carolina primary was going on. So he was fired up, all the great energy. And that was so exciting to see because I've never seen President Trump speak before. And everyone that says this was so true. The second he walks inside the room, the energy changes. I mean, you can tell that an alpha male is in the room, a fighter is in the room. But besides that, there was a bunch of great people like Tulsi Gabbard, Sebastian Gorka, Michael Knowles. I'm just saying all the people that I remember that I actually interviewed. But Javier Milei was there, President Bukele, which is the president of El Salvador. I mean, everybody was there, and it was so cool. Vivek was there. Somebody just said Trump Vivek 2024, and it reminded me right away. Vivek was there. But I think the coolest thing about this is that everybody was so easy to access because once they got off the stage, they went down this media row. It was like Epoch Times, Newsmax, all these different outlets essentially, where they had a station set up where they could then interview the people, whether it was on actual camera, was it just on audio, whatever. It was really, really cool. And as they're walking through the media outlets, like area, like the media room, essentially, I could just literally come up to them, fight some reporters, like CNN reporters, NBC reporters.
Okay, it wasn't much of a fight, David. I've seen the videos. You just manhandled everyone in that place.
It's pretty easy when you're 6 foot tall and you're just like manhandling over these reporters, right? And the funniest thing is that they're not used to that. I'm sure, like a person with no media like tag or anything like that, just cutting in front of them, pushing them out the way, and asking the question. So at some point throughout the day, I started to hear, who's this guy? What is he doing? Man, this kid's annoying. What is he? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And it was absolutely hilarious. And some of these reporters you've seen, the reporter that, her name is Dasha Burns, NBC reporter that interviewed Vivek and got into that big, argument with him about racism. That's the type of reporters that were there. CNN reporter, I forgot her name, but yeah, all these people were there and they were trying to interview people and do the same thing that I was doing. So it's pretty cool to be in that moment and to see all that fake news media there. I could hear what they were chopping up about, like with their assistants and stuff like that. It's absolutely hilarious. But man, I wish you were there, man.
Well, we have quite a few conventions that are coming up this year. One in July, and obviously AmFest over in December. But the energy at conventions is electric, and you're right. That's where you go to meet all the people that you want, that you should be meeting, and you make great connections there. But then you get to see how these people are behind the camera, right? When they're just walking around, how approachable are they? Can they shoot off the cuff? Can they give answers to questions that they're not prepared for? So you really get to see, one person who I was really impressed myself when I saw her at AmFest was Carrie Lake. Like Carrie Lake, she held herself extremely well, and I think you saw her as well at CPAC.
Yep, yeah. I actually took a picture with her.
Yeah, very, very, very well composed. She had a very good, just state of being. Right, She just stood out. Very, very alpha female-ish, I guess, if that's the word.
Carrie Lake really impressed me and like her crew in the sense that, okay, so I tried to ask her a question when she was just going through the regular media room, and like so many people were asking her, I don't think that she actually heard me. But then luckily enough, because shout out to Michelle, she got me behind the scenes of Real America's Voices like setup, which had the war room going on. So it's really cool to be behind the scenes, interact with those people. But then all of a sudden Carrie Lake came by. And I kind of was like, oh crap, I don't want to ask her the question I wanted to ask her. Let me just take a picture with her. So I was, hey, Carrie, can I take a picture with you? And I'm about to take a picture. I got the selfie mode on and somebody taps my shoulder and he goes, are you about to take a selfie, or is that about to be the other way around? And I was like, I'm about to take a selfie. And they're like, okay, give us a second. Boom, boom, boom. They get a camera, or they get a light on Carrie Lake, make sure she looks absolutely fantastic, glowing. And then they're like, okay, you can take your picture. It just shows you how some of these things that we don't think about, like how a person looks in a picture, or how they'll look when we post it on social media, especially if they're a candidate like that could be a big impact on things, and people could use that the wrong way and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so like I said, being able to just come up to these people and ask them questions or film them, because we do media stuff like that, was really cool. And one of the coolest interviews I had was to talk with Dr. Sebastian Gorka. For those who don't know, he was former deputy assistant to President Trump. So that's like your special advisor, essentially. He was big in national intelligence, even just not for America. So his thing is working on foreign policy while also advising on domestic policies. That's why he's the deputy assistant, meaning overall everything. And he got into a heated kind of debate, and he went viral, honestly, on Twitter right before CPAC for his response to Tucker interviewing Putin, and not interviewing him, because everybody should be able to interview who they want to, but I guess the the type of interview that he conducted. So let's run this. We're gonna watch the interview that I had with him, and then we'll commentate on that. So let me see. There it is. Boom. And play.
You can't hear the audio, David.
Can hear the audio. Okay, let's see. What do I have to do for the audio to play? Nope, that's definitely not
it. Under settings, try the audio coming from.
Oh, from the video. Okay.
Yeah,
I got that. All right. It's my first time leading the show, so that's why it's a little with the sharing the screen. All right, and then settings.
By the way, as David figures this out, there's one interesting thing that happened. We have some bodyguards here in Colombia, and he was telling me that he's an ex-cop, that his friend went to Ukraine, and this is something that we can talk about after, to fight, and that he was getting paid 5 times the amount that a police officer, or almost 6 times the amount the police officer would get policing here in Colombia. And so he said that they're sending all the foreigners to the front line because they want to make it seem like less Ukrainians are dying, which is just kind of messed up. And that he's already had 3 of his friends that have passed away from it. So that was really interesting. He said and everyone's going, because why would you not earn 6 times the amount of work, or obviously it's incredibly dangerous and you could lose your life, but a lot of people are going over there for the money. And of course, we just send them another $60 billion to pay for all these people. So
that's crazy. That's wild. You have that happened in Colombia, you said?
I just had this conversation yesterday with him. Yeah, because we were talking about things, we were talking about politics, and he said his buddy's over there right now fighting on the front lines.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
David. If you want to send me the link to that, I can probably pop it up here on the.
Yeah, I forgot that I posted it on X, so I'm about to just find it real quickly on X and then send it to you, because I think so. My system, because I plug in like my speakers, for some reason I'm never able to like share the audio like that. So, but yeah, let me
also. One thing, I don't know if you did this after we're done with the segment, I'd love to go back to the electoral map and then see what would happen if certain states that were supposed to win didn't get won, and what that would do to the electoral count.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're going to plan something fishy.
Yeah,
you just know it.
Absolutely. But then at some states, especially like let's say Georgia, they've passed very well election integrity laws, especially when it comes down to mail-in ballots, because I think that's where the biggest problem is. Mail-in ballots, it's very hard to regulate. Literally, liberal progressive France, they banned that stuff like 20 years ago. Why? Because they determined that that's the biggest way how fraud can be yeah. But it's
Absolutely.
crazy. Yeah. And it's so in Georgia now, if you want a mail-in ballot, the only way that you can request that is when you have on your ID, you have a special code. So you provide that code, and that's how they can verify that this is an actual individual. He's the one receiving the ballot. You get one ballot,
Mm.
and so on. And it's again in the worst case scenario that you can actually get a mail-in ballot. You can't just say, I don't feel like going and voting in person, so let me get a mail-in ballot. You have to have an actual reason. Wisconsin is another place like that, which is again relatively a progressive place, but also very conservative. So it's interesting when you see the Supreme Court uphold a law like that, or state
Yeah.
Supreme Court.
All right. Let me go ahead and play this and let me know if you can hear it.
Yeah.
David here with Dr. G.
I can hear
the
it.
realist and the only one. Just came off a fresh stage.
The guy
Amazing.
responsible for his social media startup. I think
Exactly.
that's the fair way of saying it, David.
He's the one pumping me up. Dr. G, you were all over Twitter a couple of weeks ago because of your response to the recent Tucker and Putin interview.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so if you want the deep dive, I did my, I guess my most provocative article. It led to a lot of subscriptions, a lot of hate as well on my Substack. It's called Tucker, Putin, and Trump, sebastianwalker.substack.com. But the bottom line is this. That wasn't journalism. That wasn't Tucker interviewing Putin. That was Putin owning Tucker. I'll give you a couple of examples. Why did you invade Ukraine? First question. And Putin says, oh, just give me 30 seconds. He actually, just give me 30 seconds. 40 minutes later, he's still spewing this. Well, Ukraine isn't a real country. It was invented by the Poles and the Hungarians. I mean, just garbage KGB propaganda. And I don't think we should be, you can get to interview whoever you want, fine. But platforming 40 minutes, denying the existence of a state that actually predates the Duchy of Muscovy. If you know your history, you know that the Kiev Rus, the Vikings from Kiev, predate any Russian conglomeration.
Oh, yeah.
So number one. Second, halfway through, the most interesting thing in the interview is when Putin saying, well, the CIA and all the stuff they do, blowing up Nord Stream. Yeah, I mean, just again, CIA propaganda against America. And then he says, and I'm so glad, Todd, that when you applied to the CIA, that they didn't allow you in. And then watch Tucker's face.
Yep.
He's totally unready. Why? Because it's true. Tucker did apply to the CIA for some reason. He didn't get in. And the idea that you didn't think that a former KGB colonel who has access to the KGB and SDR files didn't look up Tucker's history and he's not ready, that was owned. And then the last thing is, and I got to be, this is good. Tucker knows better. To go around Moscow and then to go to something called, how creepy is the Global Government Summit that Tucker speaks at a week later and says, well, the subways in Moscow are very clean and there's no crime. Yeah, the same is true in Saddam Hussein's Iraq when he was in charge and when Stalin built those subways with slave labor. You know better, Tucker. So I'd like to know why you're saying stuff about a dictatorship that kills the leader of the opposition, Navalny, 2 days after you give those video interviews. That's a sign of what Putin's really like. And I remember the good old days when conservatives never loved KGB colonels. Let's return to that conservatism.
Well, why are conservatives suddenly liking these anti-conservative values, their anti-Western values essentially as well?
That's a really complicated question. I would recommend everybody. It's on my Twitter feed. Konstantin Kisin, who has the Trigonometry podcast with his colleague Francis Foster in the UK. He was born in the Soviet Union. He's an ethnic Russian. He's married to Ukrainian. And he did an 11-minute analysis of the truth about Tucker and Tucker Carlson and Putin. And it was amazing. And he used this amazing phrase. We are seeing the wokeification of the divide. Yeah. What is woke? Woke is denying reality. A man can be a woman. You don't need borders to be a country. And now we're seeing conservatives who are rightly cynical after Afghanistan, Iraq, COVID, getting to a point where it's not cynicism, it's skepticism. And they think, oh, look, Putin says he doesn't like the World Economic Forum. He's got to be a good guy. Well, guess who else doesn't like the World Economic Forum? ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Iran and North Korea. Are they good guys too? So I think it's bred of cynicism, and also what has happened to conservatives in the last 8 or 10 years in America? Yeah, our president wins an election and he's not allowed to actually be the president. So there's lots of resentment. But my request to you, as somebody who chose this nation, I am a legal immigrant whose father was liberated from a communist prison. Don't give in to the skepticism and cynicism, and let's return to conservative values, freedom, liberty, national sovereignty, and don't pump up KGB colors. Please, can we agree?
I think that would be great. Thank you so much, Dr. G.
Thanks, David. Anytime.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting interview. I'm not going to lie. He said a lot of things that I didn't think he would say. And like he actually went for it. But yeah, no, I think it's the other perspective of things, right? I don't think that he's criticizing Tucker for interviewing Putin. I think it's for this type or the style of interview he led. But then at the same time, when you think about it, you're in a dictator country. You're in a country where people get thrown off roofs if they oppose Putin or they oppose the regime or anything like that. And are you actually going to go and ask the questions that you want to? Are you going to ask all of these questions, or are you going to try and make the individual open up and in some cases get into the dialogue of things like he did and get them to account for certain things? I don't know.
General Walker, I have a question.
Yeah, I think about the situation Tucker was in. The CIA was hacking his secure signal app. He was being told he said top law firms that if you go, when you come back, you may be arrested for treason or something like that. You're inside the Kremlin, which you know that if this guy doesn't want to let you go, like you're not going home. There's a lot of pressure, and even being a seasoned reporter like that, to do an interview like this in a time like this specifically, it's very overwhelming. You're sitting across from the guy, you're staring at him, and like we can all play armchair quarterback and say, well, he should have been tougher. Like until you're there in that seat, having him staring in your face with his KGB guards all around you, or whatever, not KGB, whatever they're called now. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty crazy situation. So I think the fact that Putin pressed him to like let him keep talking. I mean, I think I didn't want to be like, all right, dude, like this is your house, your rules. I get it. So from that aspect, I get it. The other thing is that I don't think that people should give Tucker too much slack on just pointing out things. And I get Dr. Gorka, and he's completely right. You don't want to have the wokeification of conservatives, but conservatives are looking for shining points around the world to say, look, this is what we could be if we just did things right. And, I like how Tucker kind of more like elaborated his position on why he was saying that things are so nice. He goes, I'm not saying Putin's a good guy whatsoever. I'm just saying that it's more of a pointing that our failed, he goes, it's more pointing at the failed leadership of the United States, that we don't have something that a corrupt leader like Putin even has in his own country, and I think, Dr. Gorsuch said Saddam Hussein's metros were also clean. And again, I think that points interior to us and saying, why aren't our leaders not even able to do something like this, whether it's clean up homelessness, whether it's, even having to deploy the National Guard to protect the subways, which didn't really work because someone just got shot in the head yesterday or 2 days ago. So there are some nuances there, but yeah, I mean, it's a very crazy situation.
Oh yeah. I like this phrase, the wokeification of the right, or the woke right, essentially, which was termed by Constantine right there, because it's a great way to phrase things or to make a phrase for what we're seeing right now. Because and like Dr. Gorka said in his video, understandably so, after Iraq, after Afghanistan, a lot of conservatives are becoming, they want to have an isolationist foreign policy approach to things, meaning America only, meaning no money for no foreign country. We have problems in the US. We need to take care of those first. And you and I have talked about this many times, Fabian. You know that I believe that we can do both. We can be taking care of our domestic issues, especially by ensuring that Democrats quit spending so much money on useless social net safety programs, and then at the same time have a strategic foreign policy to everything around there. For example, with Israel, a lot of conservatives don't want to fund Israel. Again, I understand the reason with all the stuff that we have happening in our own country. But to lose Israel as a strategic partner in the Middle East is like throwing your hands up when it comes down to the actual threat that we can have from the coming from the Arab world, especially from Islamic fundamentalists. So, but yeah, in a sense, right, the wokeification of the right is such a beautiful term for all of this stuff. But yeah, I think, and like you said, I agree with you. I think that when Tucker explained why he made those videos in the subways, it became a little bit more clear of what he was trying to say. He wasn't just like, wow, Putin is so great that look at how good things are in Russia. No, he's saying with Putin being the dictator that he is, he has way better infrastructure than America. We have a free market economy we're technically supposed to have. I don't think that we fully do have, but we have this freedom of doing things in America because of our constitutional republic. Yet all of our infrastructure is absolutely garbage. We have the power as the people to institute better infrastructure, but we don't. We're corrupted. We have too much bureaucracy. We stall everything. Yeah, it's crazy.
So, one thing that points to the just complete inept corruption of the way things are happening right now is politicians. Fetterman just called this out, or I'm not sure if he supported. No, I think he supported it. It was a library in his district or in his state that was going to get something like $1 million for some, I don't know exactly, I forget what, some drag queen, some book stuff. So you'd rather, and then he was kind of mad. He says, no, this library does good work. So you're telling me that you'd rather give this library money, $1 million to do some stupid woke stuff than actually rebuild your infrastructure? Like, why aren't you fighting for that? Like, how is it that Gavin Newsom can clean up homelessness in a span of a few days in San Francisco to welcome a dictator from China to come in, but then you can't do it any other time of the month? It's all a facade to keep you low in low spirits, to keep you not thinking that you can have something better. Because if there was one city, and there are cities like this, let's say Florida or Texas or whatever, that actually say, look, like, your city doesn't have to be trash, even though you have large populations. To the other cities, people are going to say, well, hey, what are they doing that we can't do? Like, well, why are they different? But if you keep everything low, everything poor, everything dirty, if you keep Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, McDonald's on every corner, you're going to keep a population that will never think anything better than what they have, because there is no shining example of that. And I think that's something that we can look at Russia and say, well, for having a corrupt president, even they can have that. So why can't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was a great interview and conversation with Dr. Gorka. I'll say that. I know we have another video that we were about to play. Let's play that, and then let's talk about it, because I think this was really interesting. Maybe, and I don't want to criticize the dude too much, but the answer he gave me to the question I asked, I was like, this is literally summing up how terrible Republican candidates are when it comes down to messaging. So,
Oh, wow.
well, in my opinion, at least.
But
So,
USA,
let's watch
as a
it.
candidate for Senate in West Virginia, what is your plan to win over the independents who most of the time do make out the election?
Talking to them about national security so they can actually see what's happening if we got into a tussle with China. And right now, we would not be able to do well. But when I get there, I'm going to make sure that our military is doing well.
Looking forward.
Play that again from the beginning again real quickly.
General Walker, I have a question. I'm David from Breakaway USA. As a candidate for Senate in West Virginia, what is your plan to win over the independents who most of the time do make out the election?
Talking to them about national security so they can actually see what's happening if we got into a tussle with China. And right now, we would not be able to do well. But when I get there, I'm going to make sure that our military is doing well.
Looking forward.
Okay, so he's former high-ranking individual in the Pentagon, especially. And I was listening to him like doing a podcast with one of the media outlets there, and I heard that he's running for office to replace Senator Manchin, who's stepping down 2024. He's not running for re-election. And if you know Senator Manchin, he's pretty damn independent in the sense that he's voting with conservatives sometimes, he's voting with Democrats sometimes, and he kind of goes back and forth. He's what I would call a classic Democrat, like what you had in like the 80s, 90s, common sense Democrat, if those even exist anymore. He's one of the few of those. But he's running to replace his seat. West Virginia's Senate seat is a very purple-like seat, meaning that it's going to be a lot of independents that are going to decide exactly who's going to be the senator representing West Virginia. So I asked him, I was like, what are you going to do to try and win over independents? And to me, I was just shocked when I was thinking about the average independent sitting there and saying, yeah, I'm going to vote for him because when he's in office, in the case that China invades or does something crazy, he's going to make sure everything is going to be fine. And I'm like, is this seriously the first thing that comes on top of your mind when I ask you the question of how to win over independence? I don't know, Fabian, maybe I'm just crazy, but what do you think?
Well, so I think that the reason he gave that answer, I'm assuming here, is that he's a general and that's his strong suit. So you default to what you know the best about. But clearly, if you're talking about national security in West Virginia, I mean, just any basic person who doesn't even live there is going to tell you, well, look at the demographics, look at the average income, and look at the industry that ran that country or that state, which is the coal mines, and look at what's happened since then. So a logical conclusion will be, let me talk about what people are feeling in their everyday lives, not this more esoteric meaning about China and stuff. And I get it. He's a general. He probably knows a ton about the issue. But to call it a tussle with China, you're saying this is the most pressing issue, and then you're labeling something as a tussle. Now, even if you would have said in an all-out potentially nuclear war with China, at least that has more credence. That has more weight behind it. But yeah, it's just, and I don't know if he just hasn't been trained on how to speak to media, or which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, right, I'd rather have someone who just shoots from the hip and says what he actually believes, other than his pre-rehearsed lines that he's given by some campaign management firm or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone ever, and having my brothers live in West Virginia, so I've been there many times. I can tell you just from being there that no one is going to say that that's a top pressing issue.
Yeah, I know relatively because it's like more blue collar. They're experiencing a lot of the fentanyl epidemic. They're experiencing the opium epidemic, right? So, to me, a national security threat, China makes sense. But then the tussle part, it's like, come on, resort back to what is actually happening in West Virginia. And I know that they're one of the biggest states that's being impacted by the fentanyl crisis. I forgot the exact amount of people dying a day in fentanyl. The fact that they have people dying every day from fentanyl is wild in a single state. But that's the reality of what happens when you have an open border. China manufactures the fentanyl, sends it to the cartels in Mexico. They swing it right in through the open border into all parts of America. And the majority of the areas that are experiencing the problem are these blue collar areas and whatnot. So yeah, I was just shocked, honestly, because I was like, seriously? This is this is how you're going to win independence over in West Virginia? Again, you started good and then you just took it to the wrong direction. But I think you're right. The fact that he's general probably resorted to what he knows best, and that's military stuff. So I don't know how West Virginians will accept that. And real quickly, I thought this was hilarious. The second that I wrapped up that quick little interview with him, I went to the next place and somebody came chasing after me, and it was his campaign manager. It's like, are you going to post this somewhere? Who are you? What are you doing? And stuff like that. I was like, I'm independent. I'm with Breakaway USA. If you want to, here's our Instagram. If we'll post it, you'll know. Yeah, he was like trying to, the way he came up to me and the way he like said it, I think he was implying like, don't post it, delete it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sorry, coach.
Yeah. As a campaign, someone on a campaign, when your candidate said something stupid, or you're just, and I'm sure he was trying to do some damage control on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for. I mean, I can understand if someone is running for maybe a smaller office, you know, like city council or even state senate. But to go for the actual senate, right? That's not going to win it over, and especially independent voters, like
Exactly. Exactly.
independent voters.
Independent. You're in a purple state again. You see who the senator is there. He has a pretty relatively nice approval rating. And you go to that. I mean, okay, some neocon stuff, but maybe the neolibs like that too.
Hey, you might have something there actually.
Yeah.
You know, David, I wanted to quickly go to your point. You were mentioning earlier something about when Dr. Gorka was talking about the whole Israel, and you said that, you know, about the support of Israel and you made a very good point that like they're surrounded by countries that want to see them wiped off the face of the earth. And I think this whole narrative coming out um, about there's like certain Jewish gangs or mobs or whatever that are running, you know, Hollywood and stuff. I mean, everyone's kind of known that, right? But I guess no one really knew who they were until now, which is good because you need to expose people who are doing bad things. I don't care where they're from or what religion they are or what country they're from. There are bad people everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But to say that because there's this like ring of like Jewish mobsters in LA that we should therefore by default remove all like support for Israel, it's just stupidity. It's just stupidity. But that's the narrative that the people who are anti-Israel want to push and say, look at this one guy or, you know, this one group doing something bad in Hollywood, cancel all aid for Israel. It's just stupidity. And what allow all the nations to just, I mean, you want to see a genocide, you're talking about a Palestinian genocide, take away support from Israel, you're going to see a real genocide happen. And that's going to be on a scale that we haven't seen since World War II.
Yeah, and the main thing that I always like to point to is the fact that those people are actually doing the work of the corrupt people in Hollywood and in politics and everything like that just so happen to be Jewish, because these Jewish people that are corrupt and doing these messy things and whatnot, they're actually the biggest anti-Israel crowd. Look at George Soros, for example. He funds pro-Hamas rallies, right? These liberal, and I don't even want to call them liberal, these ultra progressive Marxists and essential Jews in the United States, and I call them Jewish in name only, they kind of just utilize that fact, are some of the biggest threats to actual Israel, to actual America, or to Jews, right? And the fact that you're then doing their, oops, can you still hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
I don't know what happened to my camera. I'll check that in a second. But yeah, it's crazy. And they're literally doing their work. And yeah, that camera thing just threw me off. But
that's fine. Yeah, you can probably just restart the camera or replug the cord. Yeah, there's a big, you know, I love exposing everything. Sometimes people that you like are going to get exposed for doing bad things, and that's a good thing, right? Not everyone is good from every sect, from every religion, from every state. We have bad people everywhere, and for them to get exposed is a good thing. But for them to get exposed and then, you know, like not all Palestinians are bad, right? It's just common sense. You can't put it like this blanket statement on an entire race of people. So a lot of people don't like America, right? But they don't like. It's not like they don't like me. They don't like what the politicians are doing in those countries, the elites, and it's always the same thing, right? Here in Colombia, people are like, "Man, you know, you guys in America are doing this." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not like me or the people who I live with or around. It's the same old politician elites, the same old people that have been pulling the strings for a long time, and those are the people that everyone's mad at. It's not the people who live in the country, right? Like I have a lot of friends, tons of friends who are Jewish who I hang out with in LA, and I talk about, you know, they explain what's going on, and it's pretty crazy, you know, because I think of myself in that situation as a Jewish person, like what I will be dealing with. I also have friends who are Palestinians, and I get it, right? Like you don't want your people to be dying. It's the leaders of these groups that are making everything bad. You know, same thing with. I mean, you can take anywhere. Russian people. I have a lot of Russian friends. It's the same thing. And Ukrainians. I love Ukrainian people, right? And it sucks what's happening to them, but it's not their fault. It's these elites that are pulling the strings that are trying to make that the new, you know, the point where I really felt really sad for Ukraine, and when I was like, you know what, I need to look at this differently, was when I saw that BlackRock has the contract to rebuild the country after the war. When I saw that, I'm like, done. Like I can't support anything that's happening. I support the people. I'll always support the people of the country who are getting the shit end of the stick. But I can't support anything that's going on because I understand everything has been pre-planned, and I understand that they want to just take it over. And even, it sucks what's happening with Poland. The last point I'll make. Polish people were great. They had a great government, a very conservative government, very like nationalist government. And now the U.S. has decided, and if you haven't heard about this, this is incredible what's happening. They are arming Poland to the teeth. Poland is now the most armed country in Europe because the United States has, and the EU for that matter, has transferred a ton of weaponry to Poland because they want to make that the buffer state in case Ukraine falls, which it looks like, at least some of it is going to remain in Russian hands. So, and Poland just elected, I say elected because I don't know, I highly doubt it was, legit, a very typical UN supported, supportive government in Poland. And now they're trying to change things, make it woke basically. And there's always massive protests in Poland. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But that's what I see happening.
My couple thoughts on that. So with the Israel thing, it's just to go back to kind of what we were talking about, these progressive Marxists at this point, Jews in Hollywood and whatnot, they're, again, the biggest proponents against Israel. And let me just, the main thing for me is that it shouldn't be based on the religion aspect of things, because Obama is bad. The Clintons are bad. Bill Gates is bad. Klaus Schwab is bad. All these globalist pigs, essentially, they're terrible human beings. Are they terrible because they're Christians? Or are they terrible because of their ideology? And that's the same thing for when you see George Soros. These people aren't pigs and evil because of their religion. It's because of their ideology, the Marxist based ideology that they have, these decolonization ideas, these depopulation ideas, all of these things, right? And you can't blame their last name. You can't blame that they're this religion on the religion aspect of things. And another big thing is like the Talmud thing. It's like, oh, Jews don't believe in the Torah. It's the Talmud, blah, blah, blah. The reason they assert that weird conspiracy is because the Torah is actually the basis of Christianity. So they have to make up these stupid things. And then you get into stupid conversations and whatnot. So it's important that we understand it's not a religious thing. It's your ideology. Anybody can be a globalist pig and whatnot. The Ukraine thing, to me, I feel bad for the Ukrainian people because of so in Russia, they have Maria Lavlova. She is essentially, I forgot her exact title, but she's like secretary of something. They physically, you guys want to talk about ethnic cleansing? It literally happened in Ukraine. They have now taken about 100,000 kids out of Ukraine from the Donbas region, from the Luhansk region, Crimea, up to far east Siberia. And what did they do to these parents, like the kids' parents? They shot them. They killed them. They took them out of Ukraine, brought them into Russia, and now they're re-educating them into being Russians, completely wiped away their family, so they're going to have Russian nationality, heritage. They're not going to have anything, and that's what you call ethnic cleansing. What are Russians trying to do in Ukraine? So for me, that's the biggest thing. I'm like, yes, it's very unfortunate that what's going to happen in Ukraine after the war, it's going to be a whole globalist project, essentially funded by BlackRock. Yep. But when I know these things of like Maria Lavrova, she is literally an individual that anybody can go see, and you can see these charges against her. They're kidnapping kids, killing their parents and stuff like that. It's very, very unfortunate. And so to go all the way back, the wokeification of the right where the Gorka got it, some of these things we have to take into account. As much as we are disenfranchised from things that happen like the Iraq War, Afghanistan War, which rightly so, we have to still see these facts and be like, okay, this stuff is messed up. Putin isn't a good guy. We probably shouldn't stop funding Israel because of George Soros and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's just there's so much, and then the thing is also there's so much coming out now because of X, and it's coming out so quickly that people don't have time to take it all in and then make up informed decisions. You make rash decisions when you see a video like, oh, screw that, or screw that guy, or screw those people. But you got to take it in context, right? There's always other contexts. You can't just take one single video. This is why in court, firsthand information is usually like the worst kind of information to be admissible into court, because it's firsthand information, right? You don't have any other context. I saw this, so I assume this is what must be happening. And that's the same thing that we need to make sure conservatives, independents, liberal, whatever you are, just have context. Use logic and say, okay, I see this, I feel this way. Now, why do I feel this way? Okay, let me go check and see what else is going on that may have caused this to happen. And I think if everyone just used that logic, we would be in a much better place in the world. It's very simple.
I agree. Fabian, should you run for office? Maybe clean up California there for us?
Oh gosh, people have asked me that, and yes, you could do some good, but you also can't do a lot because you're so inundated in the day-to-day stuff of what you're doing, right? Of whatever your position is. So I think my talents are best served as looking at the whole picture and then providing context to people so they can go and make their own decisions, calling out politicians when they need to be called out. I just had on a city council member that was running in Los Angeles who had just some stupid ideas. And I said, listen, I want to get you on. I want to have a real conversation. And, this lady supported every left-wing, liberal, super progressive, woke, neo-Marxist kind of talking point that you can ever imagine. She tanked in the election, which I'm glad, because I don't think someone like that should be leading anything in any country, in any state in this country. So I think my talents are best served as something like that. But that's what I personally think. So I'm trying to clean it up just without being in the machine, in the system, to be free to say whatever the hell I want.
That's honestly the best way how to clean things, rid things of corruption and whatnots from the outside. But having players on the inside is always nice. It makes the process a little bit smoother and faster. But so I got to wrap things up. We might have another stream later on today or this evening, like a little Sunday evening show and whatnot, while Fabian's still in Colombia, but we'll see what's up. But everybody that joined us, thank you so much. I really love going over Battleground stuff. When we do our next stream, maybe later tonight, we'll go back to where you wanted to go with that electoral map again. But guys, 2024, the future looks bright. I'll take Patrick Bet-David's phrase right there, because it does. I mean, when you look at the electoral map and see how great it looks with the current polls, I really like that. The polls are pretty accurate in terms of the sentiment that you're seeing out in the public square and in your community and whatnot. And I just wanted to shout out our sponsors again, Freedom 2.0. We did a nice little shout out to them earlier this show. They kept me hydrated throughout this thing with water for deplorables, because I'm a deplorable apparently. The Wellness Kit Company, or the Wellness Company, with their incredible emergency kits, medical kits, all this phenomenal stuff. And Fabian, maybe shout out our last and third sponsor here.
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to BankX. BankX is something that I've been involved in for a while, and I'm glad that they sponsored our show. Essentially, what it is, it's the complete opposite of a CBDC. So it's called BankX.io, the stable coin, which is pegged to silver. So if you want to, if you know what they're doing to the dollar, we've had something like 30% of all dollars, or I think it's higher now, that have been printed across history, that have been printed since COVID, which is just incredibly sad. Our debt's up to $34 trillion. It's just a massive devaluation of the dollar. BankX is a cryptocurrency stable coin that tracks the price of silver, which is starting to pump already. Silver is a commodity. You can't make more of it. It's used in commercial industry. It's used in hospitals. It's used for all sorts of stuff. And it's 9 times the supply of gold, so it's much harder to artificially modify the price. It's basically that. It's a way to preserve value, having collateral there, and having complete control of what it is that you own. So if you know anything about stable coins, typically it's a $1, right? $1 worth of cryptocurrency mints $1 of stable coin. The problem with that is you don't know what they're doing with your money, right? Tether is the 9th largest commercial paper holder in the United States. And you have no idea if they actually have your cryptocurrency, because they went out and they did what banks do. They lend it, they invested it, and they won't do an audit. So they give you a digital dollar for your actual cryptocurrency, but you have no idea if it's actually there. So BankX allows you to keep control of your cryptocurrency the entire time. The treasury is not used to go out and make more money. It's yours, you own it. You create the currency, you're in the interest. It's pretty unique and revolutionary what they built over at BankX, but check them out at bankx.io.
Sweet, Fabian. Thank you so much for sponsor or shouting out our last sponsor, because I definitely couldn't have done that. But yeah, guys, thank you for everybody again who joined today from wherever you were. We love talking about this stuff. We were pretty political today, like deep into the details of things. So that's always fun. And until next time, thank you, Fabian, for joining us all the way from Colombia.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.